There's already been a few occasions when I've been out in the Bronco and I had been wishing for more light, and so I used this opportunity to put some roof lights on the Bronco. Harbor Freight introduced their Edge lights, and at the value I figured I could get a full set of 5 lights and really light up the night.
My original idea was to come up with some kind of fancy bracket and mount the lights forward on the roof rack, but in the end I just went the simple path and used the unused bar. That actually puts the lights back just far enough where they won't glare on the hood or windshield, and it was actually very simple to mount. Now that I had the lights about where I wanted them, is onto the wiring. And then I drew out a wiring diagram. Here I'm trying to figure out how many amps each wire is going to carry, and then approximately what gauge of wire that I need. For example, the backlights are only 0.2 amps, so I could keep that wire pretty thin. But the lights themselves, they each drew about 95 watts. So then I really needed to design the system for, and this is probably being a little bit more conservative, around 45 amps or so, which is considerable. But I was able to keep the wire runs relatively short, especially by going down the driver's side. But I still used probably a little bit too thick of wire for what I really had here. But this is one of those cases where it's better to be safe than sorry. I was also able to double check all these numbers with my cousin, who's a licensed electrician, because I'm obviously not. I'm using the pink wire here as a guide to help me estimate the distances between the lights, so then I can figure out how long I need to make everything and where all the connections need to be at. I can't remember where I got the idea for the wire harness brackets, but I decided to draw them up in Illustrator, which I'm pretty familiar with using, and import that into SendCutSend, which is a great service. You basically have a drawing on the site, and they give you the full cost breakdown, and you just basically push an order button, and like a week later, all the parts show up. I decided to get a little bit crazy on this one and actually spec'd it out in titanium. So they're incredibly light and yet very rigid. I think they turned out pretty good. One of the options from SendCutSend is to have the parts tumbled. I didn't choose those, but sometimes it helps to have friends who have tumblers. So I sent these parts over to Mike from the Mighty Garage, and he put them in his tumbler, and they just came out just awesome. These might look too good for a part that nobody will ever see. Thanks, Mike. With the guide wire in place, now I could remove the whole harness and start to build out my wire harness board made with a board. The nails hold everything into place, and then pretty much from there it's just connecting wires together. It's just repetitive as you go all the way down the line, but by having a nice guide, just ensures that you are maintaining the distance and the length that you need between each connector. I would occasionally install the harness just to double check my work as I went along. I used the instructions for the Ford factory roof mounted light bar as a guide of where to kind of start thinking about where the wires need to be run. The way that they ran it, they actually ran the ground wire, for example, inside, and so I actually started to take the interior apart, a couple panels there. Turns out I actually went a different route and took it apart for nothing. Once I had the upper harness built, it was time to move on to the rest of the wiring. Because I could ground the lights up on the roof rack mount, I only had 2 wires to route down into the engine bay. It was actually pretty simple to route the wires down along the A-pillar and tuck them up under the trim. It actually fit extremely well, and I could then come down and drop them drop the wires through and under the dash through that side panel, and then up and into the firewall where I've been running other things like the radio antenna, for example. And in the engine compartment, we've got the relay, and then the main power wire going to the battery, and then the yellow wire is the trigger wire for the backlights. There is a 50 amp maxi fuse to help protect the entire circuit. This is pretty much the final iteration of the wiring harness. It's rigidly mounted, so I won't get any flopping around, and everything is pretty well protected here. So I think just about done here on this one. The backlights on the driving lights here are actually tied to the side marker lights, so anytime those go on, these backlights also go on. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I turned the switch on and the lights came on, I was pleasantly surprised. The first test was really just to see how bright these things were, so I found a nice straight desolate road, and I was again also checking my aim. I had thought I got them pretty straight, but I think I was a little bit off. Otherwise, I got a good impression of just how bright these things are. This shot's a little deceiving because the camera's auto exposure kind of compensates a little bit and kind of brings it down a little bit, but it is definitely on the bright side. After realigning the lights, it was time to go for a driving test. I found a nice dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, and just got a good chance to try these things out. It was pretty impressive on just how bright these things were, and with the edge lighting that these lights have, it really shines out pretty much 180 degrees. Again, on camera, it's a little deceiving. The backlights aren't quite as bright as they look here, and I'm just going to call them clearance lights until I am brought before the long arm of the law. So what did this setup end up costing me? The first light I bought at $105, which is full price, but the subsequent 4 lights I was able to get at $25 off, so those were about $80 a piece. I did have quite a few little bits and bobs, some of those wiring connectors and whatnot laying around. I didn't quite count those, and I kind of estimated on some of the other prices, but somewhere in the $600 range all in is where I was about at, give or take. But I still think it was a great value considering the incredible output these things do, and we'll see how they do.